Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven again, people, and to a village that's very, very residential and also very new. You see, in times past, this area was all about an airfield, but that airfield is now gone. It's not in use anymore, and houses have sprung up where it used to be and around the area where it used to be. This area is known these days as the parish of Witham St Hughs. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Witham St Hughs, Bishop's Village on the Witham. This week in North Kesteven we come to Witham St Hughs, a village on the A46 built on the site of a former airfield. Theoretically, the village is defined more accurately as a housing estate, and to be fair, that's not wrong. Before wartime, Witham St Hughs simply did not exist, or at least not in the way it does today. It was part of the parish of Thurlby back then and was mostly agricultural land. With the onset of war, an airfield was constructed in 1940. This was RAF Swinderby, one of the last of the stations completed under the RAF's expansion plans started in the 1930s. The station closed in 1993, and since then, rapid expansion has occurred on part of its former site, and this is still occurring to this day. The new housing now forms the brand new village of Witham St Hughs, whose name is actually a bit misleading. The River Witham runs close by, but there's no church here. The St Hughs part is all to do with the Bishop of Lincoln, making this the Bishop's Village on the Witham. Amenities are few, but there's still a school and a village hall, and the most notable thing in the village is the RAF Swinderby Memorial, right at the village centre. Let's go. For the most part, this one will be a walk around what is a huge housing estate. That's effectively what Witham St Hughs is. It does have its own facilities, mainly all clustered together in a purpose-built square, but the vast majority of this place is residential, and it's a bit of a maze in places. In much the same way as Bar Hill in Cambridgeshire, Witham St Hughs is open plan, meaning there are various streets linked together with footpaths and open spaces like parks and playgrounds. The housing is modern, most of it erected within the last 30 years. Witham St Hughs is built on part of the former RAF Swinderby, one of the last air bases commissioned by the RAF as part of their 1930s expansion programme. It was active by 1940 and played a role in World War II. After the war, it became an RAF training school. When it closed completely in 1993, most of its buildings were demolished, including the vast majority of the technical site and the control tower. By 2014, the only major buildings left were 2 aircraft hangars. The domestic site has been redeveloped into the village that we're walking around, a world away from the RAF days. So, as a modern housing estate, Witham St Hughs can't really claim to have much in the way of ancient history. The people who live here are generally commuters because the village is ideally placed for them. It sits right next to the A46, meaning there's easy access to Lincoln, Newark and the A1. Bus services are good. The one on your screen here is actually a school bus, but there are 4 public services to Lincoln, the numbers 1, 16B, 48 and 49. Given all of this, you'd be forgiven for thinking that no building in the village predates the mid-1990s, but you'd be wrong. A handful do. So you get the idea. Walking around Witham St Hughs, you're going to find lots of housing that looks exactly like what we've seen so far. And there's plenty of this route left, so you are going to see much more of it. However, there is an area here which isn't like this at all. And if we follow this path here, alongside this balancing lagoon, it will take us towards that area. And you might be able to understand a little bit more about the RAF history when you see what's there. Surviving from the wartime era, in the far northeastern corner of civilization, Witham St Hughs has some houses that look a little out of place these days. These houses are the former airmen's and officers' married quarters, the only remaining domestic buildings from the RAF base. These would have been built in the late 1930s or early 1940s. Here's a phone box, and it's not a typical red one either. It's the old BT style instead, and it has a defibrillator. The parish notice board is next to it, so let's get Witham St Hughs ticked off that North Kesteven list. 49 to go. Now, we've seen a setup like this before, where a brand new estate has been built on a former airbase. That was back in the Fernwood episode, where a similar village has now been built at the former RAF Boulderton. In both cases, the married quarters have been left untouched. Some of these street names offer further clues to the RAF's presence here. Dambuster Court off Cheshire Lane is a reference to the famous 617 Dambuster Squadron that took part in Operation Chastise. Gibson Green too is Dambuster related, referring to Wing Commander and ace bomber pilot Guy Gibson. 617 Squadron were never based here though. During the war, several other squadrons were. More on them shortly. Leaving the married quarters behind, next we come to Warren Lane, and it's here where you can see currently that Witham St Hughs is still expanding. This site plan shows just how much more still has to be built here by a variety of house building companies. Some 1,100 new homes are still to be built. That accounts for more than a tenth of the 10,000 new builds planned across North Kesteven by 2040. If it's growth you're after, this is definitely your district. So with all these new builds and new residents flocking to Witham St Hughs, it stands to reason the place has facilities. There are plenty of little playgrounds, but it's park green that provides the main open space for recreation. This has been purposely planned into the new development and covers a sizable chunk of land north of the current extensive housing. It's not dissimilar to your average village playing field, but sports-wise it only has a football pitch. It's good for exercising your dog, mind you. Via a path through it, we next come to a nursery, and now we're entering the village centre. This is the village hall, purpose-built along with the village to serve the residents. Well used by all, this hosts a youth group, the Women's Institute, and various activities, clubs and classes for all ages. Parish council meetings also take place here. Witham St Hughs used to be in the parish of Thurlby. In front of the hall is a memorial pertaining to RAF Swinderby. Swinderby was allocated to No. 1 Group in 1940. Numbers 300 and 301 squadrons arrived here soon after. They were the first Polish manned bomber squadrons in the RAF and had only been formed a few weeks earlier. The 2 Polish squadrons continued to operate from Swinderby until 1941. Numbers 50 and 455 squadrons were also based here during the war years. Now we've come around the back of the village hall, and here's a playing field, again purpose-built. This and most of Witham's facilities are all clustered together in one area, which I'm calling the village square. In front of us here is a building which hasn't been built very long. Google Street View shows a boarded up building where this is, still standing as recently as 2012. Nowadays, a veterinary surgery stands here instead. Next door is the Market Lounge, a brand new cafe bar which opened in 2018, and it's a popular local meeting place. Across the square we go now towards the school. This is a primary academy which was rated outstanding by Ofsted at the last inspection. Incidentally, St Hugh, who the village is named after, was instrumental in local education. It was he who raised the quality of education at the school within Lincoln Cathedral back in the 12th century. At the entrance to the square is a Co-op supermarket, which is the one and only general store here, but there are other retailers. As you leave the square, you pass a row that includes 2 takeaways, one pizza, the other Asian cuisine. There's also a health and beauty salon next door. So in all, Witham St Hughs doesn't have a massive amount, certainly not as much as some other villages we've seen. With a fast growing population though, and an influx of new businesses and more homes being planned since the mid-1990s, Witham St Hughs has definitely put itself firmly on the Lincolnshire map. To finish with, it's more housing. So here's a little montage of the remaining streets and footpaths I walked down to get back to the start. Enjoy! Alright, so we're almost back at the car after about an hour's walk around Witham St Hughs. Now, we're not quite finished with this episode yet because apart from all the housing, there are some businesses which have been built on the former airfield, and some of the runways and the perimeter track from the airfield still exist as well. Now, we're going to take the car to have a look at those, hopefully. There are some roadworks on Camp Road at the moment, so that might play a bit of havoc with what I've got planned here. We'll see how much we can actually film. If not, well, it doesn't matter. These things happen. Industrially, Witham St Hughs is becoming a major player in the local area. On Electric Avenue off Camp Road are several nationally known businesses. This is the first phase of a wider industrial development known as the Network 46 Business Park, which will eventually offer more than 95,000 square feet of warehouse and manufacturing space. Businesses already here include UK Mail, DPD and DHL, and the depot of the latter can be seen on your screen now. Another big employer on this part of the industrial estate is Apogee, Europe's leading provider of managed workplace services. On the other side of Camp Road is a second industrial site, but this one's much older, and you can probably tell that straight away by the surroundings. It's built on part of the former airbase. We're heading for Cargill, a company which provides food, agriculture, financial and industrial products and services to the world. It's been located in Witham St Hughs since 1984. The head office of Frontier Agriculture Limited, which is a Cargill joint venture, is also based here too. There's around 150 Cargill and 150 Frontier employees based at this very site. Cargill's European refined oils and grain and oilseed supply chain businesses are located here, and it's also the base for its IT and finance functions. This includes the European Financial Services Centre, which processes transactions for many businesses across the continent. Another long-established business here is George H. Kime. Founded in the 1930s, it was initially set up to provide a transport service for the local food partners. Finally, we come to Cemex, a quarry which occupies part of the runways and perimeter track of RAF Swinderby. We can't drive onto it for obvious reasons. Cemex purchased the site in 1995 for commercial mining. However, the company rent part of their land to the International Antiques and Collectors Fairs, who use it to host the Swinderby Antiques Fair 5 times a year. And that's it for Witham St Hughs, but we're not done with Swinderby yet. Come back next week for more. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.